I am not anti-hunter. My nephew hunts, but I don't want to be afraid to use the state parks for 7 months of the year. So I have several questions and a couple of comments. My first question is, how far do the bullets from the specific types of guns allowed go? And it's obviously different. Rifles go a mile, which means that anybody within a mile is not safe. Other kinds of guns, depending upon the bullets, go lesser amounts. So that the safety zones need to be set for the length of space that the guns being used for that kind of animal go. Now, I don't know whether you can restrict the guns or whether you do it indirectly by saying, well, by this kind of animal uses this kind of gun. The second question was, what will a trap do to a child's leg or arm? If there are safe traps, maybe you can outlaw any traps except those traps. According to the New York State website, hunters wearing orange are 7 times less likely to be shot than those not wearing orange. So are you going to urge all park users to wear orange? 4, how do you plan to keep teenage couples from wandering more than 100 yards from a trail to find a secluded place to make out? 5, how do you plan, these are serious questions, how do you plan to keep 12-year-old boys from going more than 100 yards from a trail when they're looking for firewood? 6, how do you keep people from, like photographers, from doing stupid things? I was taking pictures in a desert park in Tucson, and afterwards was told, well, the thing that you were doing out there, which was dangerous, was you were backing up with your camera on the rocks in rattlesnake period. So how do you keep people from doing stupid things? I believe that the parks not only are owned by all of us and that we pay as taxpayers a lot of money to support them, but that somebody told me on break that they were originally set up in the 30s specifically so that there would be a place people could go without hunters.
Hikers, bikers, campers, cross-country skiers, bird watchers, and photographers make up the majority of park users and are entitled to enjoy state parks free from the dangers of being hit by a stray bullet or stepping into a trap. How much revenue will our state lose when the majority of park users no longer feel safe in our state parks? From all the questions, concerns, and suggestions today, it is obvious that this is a public safety issue, and I beg, plead, and urge you to close all state parks to hunting and trapping where it is not already allowed.
This is going to scare away a lot of people. Unless we can come up with some kinds of rules that will protect our people, and the DNR is the body that can do that, I'm afraid for our state, for our tourism, and for our citizenry. I'm a retired attorney, personal injury attorney, and I tell you, as candidly as I can, that you need to carefully craft these rules, because the DNR will be subject to lawsuits for both personal injury and for wrongful death if you're not very careful as to how you craft these rules. I'm telling you that literally tens of thousands of acres of land throughout Wisconsin are far more suitable and appropriate for hunting and trapping than the precious acreage we have set aside, the mere 60,000 acres, for the benefit of our citizens, for tourists, and for nature lovers. To ignore our birthright and to permit such abuse of our lands by narrow commercial interests must be seen as unacceptable. We should be careful so that we preserve these for the beauty of our state parks. We are the stewards of this land that must be available for the benefit of all, not just the few, the crass and the commercial, and the lobbyists and power brokers that have taken control of this state. We ask that you alter your plans to push and implement this law through regarding the portions as it relates to the opening up of our state parks. We ask that you delay this to give us more chance to think and to plan accordingly. This was pushed through too quickly, but the DNR can stand as a roadblock.
Putting conibear traps along the water will be very dangerous. Traps will be left there in the summer. I had just recently, last night, gone to Libby Road and talked to a man, and he said he lost his dog. They couldn't find him. Then one day they found him, his skeleton, in a trap.
We have a major public safety issue here with real injury and death consequences.
In just the last month or two, in Minnesota, a 6-year-old girl walking her dog, and her dog got caught in a trap. She called her mother, she came over and realized right away the dog was dead. That little girl not only witnessed that, but what if she had stepped in the trap? It obviously wasn't a safe trap as we saw here. I'm not sure that everybody trapping in the state parks is going to use that safe trap.
Why do we have to go to the parks when we already have enough killing ground, harvest ground? All right, on the traps, somebody mentioned there the traps, we now have some humane traps. I want to see a trap that can differentiate between a target and a non-target. And then I can tell my neighbor next door who lost his black lab to a non-trap that was on his land. I also think that some of these traps supposedly that are not inhumane, that are supposed to be not cruel, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. What do you do when you catch an animal in a trap? Well, you can do a lot of things. You can club it to death, but against the DNR is against that right now, aren't they, from what I've heard? You can gut shoot it, which is probably what happens most of the time, or you can shoot it between the eyes. That's probably the fortunate ones that are shot between the eyes.
First, I'd like to say that my fathers and my brothers, my uncles, nephews, they all hunt. Hunting is a long tradition in my family. They hunt duck, geese, and deer. They are conservationists, and they believe in the limited time frame that we have for hunting. So they are not in support of this expanded statewide approach. I share their view that we should not open up our state parks to this kind of 8-month-long hunting and trapping season. I think it's too long. We don't know the ramifications yet of what's going to happen. And it isn't a surprise, I don't think, that 9 other states in this country, only 9 other states in this country, allow this level of hunting. It's really excessive. And we think about the number of hunters we have in our state, and we're really talking about 10% of our population. We're not talking about the majority of people. And so why would we limit access to our natural areas to the extent that we're looking at for such a small group? And there's room for everyone here. And I think we have reasonable seasons that are set up, and most hunters would agree with that. A lot of the previous speakers have looked at safety issues and talked about safety issues. Not very many people have talked about the animals themselves. And I think the Natural Resources Department and the Natural Resources Board also has an obligation to protect the long-term existence of animals, our ecosystems, and our ability. I mean, if you want to talk about hunters' rights, we want to make sure that we have long-term ability to hunt. And so if you have indiscriminate killing for long periods of time, we don't really know what the ramifications of that are going to be yet. And so I think we need more study. And I just would encourage you to try and slow the process down. If you have any authority at all to be able to say, we want to have more scientific review, we want to look at what other states have done, what is that going to hurt? To allow a little more time for more reasonable discussion and for more people to be involved and to know about this. I talk to people, friends, nobody's even heard of this, and it's such a surprise to me. I only learned about it myself pretty recently.